Tell me about the first time in your life where you experienced or had a sense of this greater, this energy
I don't
greater.
know that I can. I mean, for me, this is something that's just always been there, so it's hard, for me to say, well, this was like this profound moment when things were different than they were before. I mean, I know that when I started leading services, I was leading services for a congregation in Vail, Colorado, and it was very weird, as a lay leader this was, and it was very weird that when I was leading services, I felt at peace and things felt right. And I was really struggling with what to do career-wise. I was thinking of going back to medical school. And I was really torn up about what I should do. And I remember my friend Kate Lewin and I were sitting on the steps of the Bema, hanging out talking. And at this point I'd gotten into rabbinical school, which I didn't expect to get into, and I didn't know if I wanted to go. And she asked me, she said, well, what does it feel like when you lead services? And I told her how, I feel at peace, I feel it feels right, I feel connected. She said, well, there's your answer. And I remember there was another time, that same time, when I was really struggling with what I wanted to do, and I was backcountry skiing in an area it's called the Mushroom Bowl. It's behind Vail. It's this really rugged, beautiful area. And, that's not right. I skied there later and told the story. I was mountain biking because it was summertime, because I'd gotten accepted to school. So that would make more sense. I don't know. The season's wrong in my head. But anyway, I was in this really rugged, beautiful area. I don't know if I was in skis or a mountain bike. I can't remember. But, I remember just feeling like that there was a wisdom. There's a wisdom in this mountain, in the trees, and that if I could quiet myself enough to hook into that, then I could figure out what I needed to do.
Just give me a second.
That's fine.
What does it mean in your life to have faith?
I should say that faith is not a word I use. It's not one of my vocabulary words. When I think of faith, I think of a suspension of rational thought that allows one to believe in something that is improvable. So faith that something will turn out okay, even if there's no reason to think that. You just, it'll be okay. Have faith, this will be okay. Faith in a deity that isn't provable, but just suspend belief and suspend rationale, rational thinking, and you're able to believe in it.
You're describing what you don't subscribe to.
That's what I think of when I think of the word faith.
So let's say someone comes on one of your programs, or what. I'm totally fine that your definition, or that you don't use the word, but I'm trying to figure out what in the sphere of. Let me not come to it through my vocabulary then.
I use the word religion. I'll say I'm a religious person.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't say I'm a person of faith. I would say I'm a religious person. But I don't know if that's the same thing that you're talking about.
I guess the question would be, what's the role of, I want to make sure I use your words again, you didn't say a power greater than yourself, but
that which is greater than myself.
that which is greater than myself. What's the role of that which is greater than myself in our lives? In your life?
To me, one of the most profound experiences we have as human beings is our ability to connect with other people, with places, that are members of this earthly community. And I think that it's, for lack of a better word, the God that's in each of those things that allows us to connect, or that we notice, doesn't allow us to connect, that we notice when we connect with each other. So I think connecting with that gives us the understanding that we are responsible to one another and to the planet. So that's one gift. Another gift is a opportunity for tranquility, for peace. So I think when we, Job is this amazing story about this man who all these terribly tragic things happened to. And they happened to him for a really good reason. I mean, God made a bet with Satan. And, right, you know the story, right? He makes this bet. And so God says, hey, look at my great guy, Job. And Satan says, of course he's great. You give him everything he wants. Take it away and see what's going to happen. So God says, okay, take it away. So take everything away. And Job's like, what's happening? God, this isn't right. This isn't right. And cries out to God. And then Job actually gets an answer from God, which is amazing. It's the only enviable thing that happens to him. But he gets this answer, and God really actually has an answer to why these bad things happen to him. They happened to him because I had this bet with Satan. And we won. Yay, us. Here's all your stuff back. Right? God could have done that. It's God, right? But that's not what God does. God instead takes Job on this whirlwind tour of the wilderness. And in the end, Job says he's comforted because he is dust and ashes. And the commentary that I'm most comfortable with in the translation that I think is really quite amazing, I forget where it's, Stephen, forget the author, but he's comforted that he's dust and ashes. He's comforted that he too, just like everything else in the world, ultimately is dust and ashes. He's connected to all things. Ultimately, we're all the same and we're all connected. And that's the source from which he draws his comfort. So I think that when we connect with that sense that we are part of something larger, it's a tremendous opportunity to find comfort and to find meaning in a life which is just tough and rough sometimes.
So when people see your portrait that we'll make, what do you want them to know about you?
I would like them to know that you can be a rabbi and be an adventurous woman.
Are you recruiting?
Am I recruiting? No, I didn't think of it that way. But I think part of what my goal is with the Adventure Rabbi program is to take back the ownership or the proprietorship of religion from people who say it has to be done. You're not a religious Jew unless you go to services on Saturday mornings. You're not an affiliated Jew unless you go to synagogue. You're a member of a synagogue. I don't buy that. And I think there's so many people running around that say, well, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. The mountains are my temple. And I think that a lot of these people really are not just spiritual, but religious. They just need a little education to show how what they're doing is actually Jewish. But Judaism got started, and so did Christianity, therefore, got started in the wilderness. And I just think that there's certain really beautiful lessons that we get best when we're outdoors, that once you move inside, we just kind of lost track of. Or certain lessons that maybe we even know about and we teach about indoors, like the idea of cultivating patience, ideas of rediscovering the awe in the world. But somehow when you teach them inside, they just kind of lose their pizzazz. People just can't get them. You know, I'll have the experience where I will take a group of people that, you know, they've sung the Shema prayer for years. You know, like, it's nothing. They say it by heart, blah, blah, blah. Take them out to this beautiful wilderness spot and have them experience that same prayer in this different environment where, you know, let's say they're standing on top of a peak. Say we're doing a peak climb, which is on top of the peak, and you know that feeling when you're on the top of the peak where it's so awesome and there's just no words. Like all you can say is like, wow. You know, or maybe you say, oh my God, which is interesting in itself, right? It's that's the experience you're supposed to have when you're praying. You know? And whoever has that, I mean, I guess lots of people do, but people I work with don't. So you take that experience that's already there, that feeling of, and then you add the Shema to it. You say the Shema from that place, and suddenly this prayer comes out as a prayer of thanks, of connection, of gratitude, of striving, of hope. You know, of all these different emotions get laden in there and just like sent out over this valley. And suddenly Judaism is like relevant and meaningful and accessible. And I didn't teach anything new. I just took what they already knew and put them on top of a 14,000 foot peak. Total experience. Base of the Grand Canyon. We backpacked in. It was March 2001. March 2001, we backpacked in with a group of students from Williams College to do an adoption and baby naming service for a 1-year-old named Mariah Colorado Lewis, who her parents, Bernice and Scott, had adopted from Romania. And they wanted to do her conversion and her baby naming in the Holy of Holies, base of the Grand Canyon. So we hiked down. Scott's the director of the Williams outdoor program. So he brought 12 kids with him. Down on the base of this canyon with this group of students, coincidentally were Jewish, most of them, who, if you asked them what their religion was, they would give you answers like, I'm a BuJew, I used to be really religious, but, you know, it doesn't speak to me anymore, it's not accessible, running is my religion, you know, all those answers. We're down on the base of the canyon, and I do the ceremony for this baby, it's infant, no, it's not infant, well, toddler, I guess. And I took the Jewish traditional words, Yevרכך Adonai וישמרך, may God bless you and keep you, and combine them with the wisdom of the canyon. May you have the wisdom of the rocks. You know, may you have the wisdom of the Colorado River, which knows which rocks to flow around, which rocks to flow over, you know, which rocks to patiently work your way through. You know, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. You know, may you have tenacity of the, you got the idea. So the whole service was combining, you know, these two things. And you should have seen the faces of these students when I was finished, when Mariah was being held by her mom and her dad, and they're dunking in the Colorado River for their mikvah. And they come out and surrounded by this red rock. And the students came up to me afterwards and they were like, I had no idea Judaism could be like this. I had no idea. Like, tell me more. We spent the whole week, you know, hiking around the canyon, talking about Judaism as I know it, which is totally different than the Judaism they were brought up with, you know, Avinu Malkeinu, you know, my father, you know, our father, our king, you know, have mercy on us, pardon us. You know, I was talking about a totally different God. And I was talking about, you know, they're thinking about Judaism as this religion that requires this, this, and this from them. And I'm talking about a Judaism that enhances my life and helps me become a better person and you know, have a more meaningful existence. And I'd been a congregational rabbi for a few years at that point and really struggled with it. Like, I had really felt like I just couldn't reach the people. There was so much protocol in the way. Things had to be done this way and not that way, and the board had to approve this and not that, and you can do this but not the other. And suddenly, it's near the base of the Grand Canyon. with 12 kids, just doing my thing. And they got jazzed about Judaism in a way that I never would have gotten them jazzed in a synagogue. And one of them actually is Bethy, is going to rabbinical school. She's applying for rabbinical school right now. The BuJew. Came all the way back. And it came out of the canyon, and I had been so pessimistic about the survival of Judaism in America. I just couldn't get how, or reformed, progressive Judaism. Just couldn't see how possibly it was going to work. And I came out of the canyon, and I was like, you know what, this is how it's going to work. This is one of the ways in which it's going to work. It came out, and I drove all the way back to Canada, and I resigned from my position a couple months later, moved back down to the States, to Boulder, Colorado, and in November of that same year, 2001, I started the program. And it's amazing because since then, I mean, I have brought hundreds, if not thousands, of people back, and now with the book, I mean, probably tens of thousands of people back to a joyful relationship with Judaism. And some of them, we've actually had 2 students go on to be rabbis now, but so some, or 3, forgot one. So some of them will come back to organized religion. They'll come back to synagogues and federations and JCCs. But even if most of them don't, they're now walking around for the first time in their lives being joyful about their Jewish identity. Not dissing it, not hiding it, not being angry at it, but just embracing it and being, jazzed about being Jewish. So that's, it's working. It's working.